So the picture you're painting, okay, is like a picture of deliberate effort to stay where we are. As though nobody's really looking at the technicalities of all the aspects of the power sector.
Definitely.
How did we get there?
Okay, I give you the picture. I think I mentioned in here, and my father was able to take me up intelligently, fantastically. The problem is simple. I said we got it wrong because we put in the car before the house, or that has been the case. One, the law says if you go by the constitution of this country, power is concurrent. Power is concurrent. Federal and state could legislate on generation, transmission, and distribution. Till tomorrow, power is concurrent. We state government is doing power. At best, if they need to generate, they get generation license from the NERC. We shouldn't be. They should be the one licensing entities. Lagos state government is struggling with some discourse now because of their IPPs. They say, no, you can't. You're going to capture our market. Oh, Lagos state government is able to provide independent power plants to supply power to certain areas. And the existing structure says, okay, it's already covered by the national grid. And they are not allowing them to back up the national grid. And they are threatening them with legal action. A whole lot of issues.
But the Constitution gives them room to...
The Constitution gives room for state, even if I were Lagos State or Ogun State, I'm going to set up, I've said it here, I'm not instigating anything. I'm going to set up Ogun State Electricity Regulatory Commission. I'm going to call the investors, hey, come let me license you to do off-grid power generation through biomass, through renewables. I do is renewable. I'm going to do new hydro. I'm going to start a state grid. Federal government should even concession some grids. What's the business of federal government having national grid? Back off Lagos state grid or your state grid and let everything be dismembered.
Clarify here. The Constitution gives the states the right to set up all of this.
If you go good there, you're going to see the Constitution.
So why have the states not done this?
That's been my question. The states, I don't know of any state that has in place the institutional framework to regulate power generation, transmission, and distribution. That's the starting point.
But the picture you paint sounds more like, you know, even though the Constitution says, and it's supposed to, is the ground norm, it overrides everything, it would seem that there are legal complexities when you look at it at the bottom level. Isn't that where lawmakers should be focusing on to see how they can sort it out?
Thank you. I guess that's what should be the base of the probe itself. Because why federal government will keep spending trillions of naira on things that even ought to be within the purview of the state government anyway. But then, the Constitution says this. Go and look at the Act itself, the Electric Sector Power Reforms Act of 2005. It federates everything. That's the problem. The Constitution says, hey, decentralize. The law that operationalizes the sector makes everything federal.
Central.
Against what the Constitution says. And nobody is in court. No state government is challenging that. In the case of Fabia and others, when, as to the issue of resource control, state government went to court. They challenged the federal government. State government should challenge the federal government.
But I think that we've asked you this question before because, I mean, some of the state governors are lawyers. Quite a number of them in the last dispensation were lawyers, in Lagos at least. The former governor was a lawyer. Perhaps he should have seen that, you know, power was concurrent or was, you know, on both lists. If that was the case, why do you think that the state governments then deliberately allow themselves, you know, be bullied or cowed when the Constitution gives them power otherwise?
I honestly believe the Buhari administration is going to change all this. There's no point federal government over-investing in the power sector, and we're not seeing power. At best, federal government should partner with the state government. If Lagos State is ready to lead the whole of Lagos State, so be it. If Bayelsa is ready, fine. If Kano is ready, If Kogi is not ready, whose business?
Do you think that there will be problems? Because first of all, we then have to ask, how big is the power market, for instance? So if we say that we have, or the federal government has privatized some of these entities, the private investors have just bought these things. They've invested money. They're yet to make their money back, as it were. Do you think that there can be so many players in the sector to give power to everyone?
That is the politics. You just got it right. That's the politics. After the privatization, the new entities signed onto funding agreement with the federal government. Oh, please, shield me for 5 years, shield me for 20 years. Let me recoup my investment with interest, with yield. Please don't expose me to needless sector competition. And they structure it in such a way that you have the pre-competition, post-privatization, and the liberated market where everybody will be able to come in freely and exit. And they are making sure we're not transiting to that level where there will be level playing ground for everybody. They are still somehow protected. The new entities are protected. If you look at the sector agreement they signed, they are supposed to be shielded or protected for a particular number of years at the expense of Nigerians. And those entities are mere tariffs collectors. They only want to collect tariffs from the existing customers. They are not interested in extending the existing infrastructure to have more customers come in, to have more, to give Nigerian power to consume and pay.
You know, when we're talking, listening to you now, what comes to mind is for someone like yourself who's done extensive work in the sector, who's also been able to work directly and observe some of these people, especially when we talk about power sector. The Canadians, without mentioning any company, were also mentioned in being experts in fixing some of these, just as the Chinese. And in our surge to fixing the power problem, we had moved towards that, towards such places. How come we're still talking about probes? We're still talking about the problems that you have just highlighted when we thought by extending some kind of fellowship to these experts, by now we would have been out of the dark.
Thank you very much. Of course, we play politics with everything. Gladly you mentioned Canada. I would say that without making any particular statement. Not only I have the other part of me Canadian, I'm Nigerian Canadian, if I may say that on here. I also got trained there for my master's and doctorate, and I know exactly what you're talking about. That Canada is huge in terms of power. And that is one of the reasons why Manitoba Hydro is the company that has a transmission management contract to manage the transmission infrastructure. But as I said here, in one of my appearances, I mentioned that even Manitoba Hydro is being frustrated. And when I saw the agreement, not the details, I sensed the company is going to be messed up. Then I went, of course, the only way scholars could write, I went and wrote an article, a damning one for that matter, and I insisted the article should be published in the University of Manitoba Law Journal so that I can have my evidence. It was revealing things that could happen in Nigeria, and I want them not to do business the Nigerian way. They should try to do business the Canadian way, or else they're going to get messed up, just like the former vice president of a big country was being invited by EFCC during this Alibotin probe and the rest. So I told them to be careful of what could happen in Nigeria because of the environment they're operating. I told them the way things are done here, and they didn't have to be careful about it. I told them that things they wouldn't do in Nigeria that would get them messed up. Of course, after writing the paper, somebody was advising their special assistant to, of course, write a rejoinder article. I was expecting that. Weeks after, what I predicted in that paper happened. People started calling me all over the world, whether I knew, whether I had a kind of privileged information. I said, no, we don't need to be a magician to know the trend in this sector. I have followed this sector as an expert, of course, and we are pioneering the law and the regulatory issues in this sector. Fine, but we follow the trend. But Manitoba Hydro, an expert, is even a local player. Manitoba Hydro is just in the region of Manitoba, not even a national player. Manitoba Hydro is like saying Lagos State Electricity Board managing the transmission infrastructure of the entire country. Manitoba Hydro is a regional player there. That tells you that power needs not be something federated.
So
we need to bring it down to the level.
We'll come back.
So we have the expertise, we have the Chinese, we have the Canadian, but then, of course, the Nigerian factor.
We'll discuss more about the Nigerian factor and mix that up with what my colleagues have highlighted about the laws not restricting these states, and to the extent that they have not been able to latch on to them. That's when we'll come back from the newsroom. We have Anne again to give us another look at headlines.